Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for clicking on my video today. Here a few days ago, I posted a video here a little while ago about an engine that exploded. A single cylinder horizontal shaft Briggs and Stratton engine. Kablooey she went. We got her sitting right here. There's a little extra ventilation over there. So this Briggs and Stratton engine, I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know a ton about it. I just know it's a Briggs and Stratton. Came off of this here Craftsman mower. The mower belongs to a buddy of mine. He called me up and he said, "Hey man, this thing ain't running. Can't figure out why. This is what it's doing." So I went over to his house, tried to help him out. Get over there, look it over. There's a bunch of stuff going on with it. Too much fuel, and the spark plug didn't have the correct gap in it, so it was just, basically getting blown out by all the fuel that was in there. Just a bunch of stuff was not right with it. So did a few things over there, pulled the spark plug out, looked it over, messed with the carburetor a little bit, not much because this is a electronically adjusted carburetor, which I didn't even know they made on a horizontal shaft engine. So, the story that I got from it was it had been taken apart. It had been, it had gotten a new rod. Pretty sure he said it got a new rod. The guy that put it back together tore it back apart, thought that he messed up the timing, retimed it, put it back together, still didn't run right. So I pulled it apart and found that the timing gear, or whatever you want to call this, was that the key had been sheared on it. So I pulled it off, put the key back in right like it was supposed to be, put it all back together, fired it up, and it ran. It was running pretty good. I moved the throttle out of choke and into the lowest idle setting that the throttle has, and there was no change. It kept running. I went to push the throttle back into choke in hopes to bring the idle down, and this happened. So I have a few theories about why. As you can see, there was some extreme destruction. I mean, this is a piece of a rod. This is a piece of a rod. This rod has been hit by something right here, hit by something right there. I mean, it's just all sorts of bad shape, really. The cam made it through. I don't really know how, but it did. And it was running decent. There's still chunks in here. Still chunks of stuff in here. The piston's still in there. The piece of the rod still hooked to the piston. The crank over here is good. Over here you can see where it had. It's not that this wasn't the first time this had jumped time because of the timing gear losing a keyway. Look at this. This base even busted out. I didn't really look this thing over too much when I pulled it apart, because I was just super disappointed that it exploded. Really, it blew chunks of the case out. Pieces of the case are missing now. This is the throttle, a piece of the throttle. It's toast. So there's a lot of stuff that's broken. I mean, this thing, it was violent. I'll play the clip again. But one of my thoughts behind this was that this is the throttle, right? Now you can see the throttle's working just fine. This is where the throttle was hooked to. This whole mechanism here on the side is a throttle. That should be choke, okay? When it comes back to here, that should be the lowest setting. And then this should be the lowest idle setting right here. And then as this piece comes forward to about there, that should be full throttle. And then it clicks over into choke. What I noticed when I pulled the engine off of the mower body, whatever, I noticed that when I took the throttle off, the throttle wasn't actually moving. So essentially what I believe was happening was, and you can actually kind of see, whoops. So here's all the throttle linkages, okay? Now, this here's the throttle, okay? You notice how the throttle, oops. If you look, the throttle's sticking. It's not, there's no return anywhere whatsoever. It just sticks. And that is because this retention spring right here is not hooked to the body down here where it's supposed to be hooked to. It's hooked to this. So there's nothing returning the throttle. It's just, it was just held wide open. So essentially what I think happened, and I could be completely wrong, but my instinct on this is what happened was it was out of time originally, okay? And then when they put it back into time, when he went in, fixed the crank, or the cam, put the cam back into timing, it, at that point is when the keyway broke for the timing gear. So when I took it and put it back together with the new keyway, I mean, it was full bore on the throttle and it was now in time. So it over revved. Anybody that knows anything about a Briggs and Stratton engine knows that the stock rods that they use, this is just cast aluminum. I mean, it's weak. It's not meant for anything. That's why when people build race mowers and stuff like that, that's why they get forged rods. They get forged all sorts of stuff to put. I mean, I went and looked because I was looking for a new engine for it because I felt bad that the thing exploded. And there's all sorts of forged pieces that you can get for these things. I mean, the market is kind of impressive, really. But then on top of that, after it exploded, no oil came out of it. Okay, it came off the side of the block. All the oil was still down in the valley. No oil leaked out. There's no oil in my driveway where it exploded. You know, so I brought it in here. The first thing I took off this engine was the dipstick. And when I pulled the whole case and everything off, here it is. When I pulled this whole thing off, the oil was low. So, and I'm not like saying that was the problem, but the oil was low. And who knows how long this thing's been getting messed with. It was leaking oil somewhere around the valve cover or the head. I'm not really sure which one, but it was leaking oil up there somewhere. And then this is a air-cooled engine, and the oil was slightly milky. So if it sat out in the rain or anything like that, then that's where that milkiness came from. But at the end of the day, honestly, this thing, I really, really, truly believe that this thing exploded due to an over-rev problem, because the throttle wasn't returning like it was. See, look at that. This is not supposed to happen. This isn't supposed to just sit one way or another. Okay, this is supposed to have a detent to it. It's supposed to return. And it's not doing it. I really believe that this thing went into an over-rev, and I mean, that's just all there is to it. There's no way it was any other, there was any other reason. It was just it was an over-rev. So once I got it back into time, everything was good there, put it all back together, fired it up, and it just went through the moon in RPM. And who knows how old this engine really is. I don't know how old the mower is or anything. So, but this rod is junked. Look at that. But yeah, this rod, it's junk. It's all sorts of scarred up and gross, and you can see it was hot. So, I don't know. That could have been another thing too, is maybe when it was put back together, they just misplaced the rod bearing, and they just didn't, one of those things that was overlooked, maybe. I don't know. And the reason that I don't believe that it was an oiling issue, or that it was, well, any issue other than an over-rev, is because it never knocked, it never made funny sounds, it never did nothing. It did at one point, like, kind of idled down, and it sounded like it was missing, you imagine a V8 missing on one cylinder. That's what it sounded like, which was super weird because it's only got one cylinder. But shortly after that, it went kaboom. So here's the case, the face of the case, I guess. whatever you want to call it. This this chunk is not supposed to be moving around. This thing sits right here, like so. This little chunk sits over in here. That's how that's supposed to be. That helps. That holds the crank, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, I mean, it's engine's junk, really. I didn't pull the piston out because I didn't really care to. But I don't know. I feel bad, really. Like I said in the last video about this thing, this is the first time I've ever had a catastrophic failure. So, kind of made me feel bad a little bit. But if you think I'm wrong, if you don't think it was an over rev issue, if it was something else, or you have had this problem before with the timing and not running right and yada yada, and the engine exploded like that, comment below, let me know. I don't want this to happen in the future. I don't want to, you know, the thing about this, the biggest thing about this is it's kind of broken my confidence when it comes to working on engines, because I've never had this happen before. I've always been fairly competent and fairly confident in my ability to do these things. I've always watched somebody do whatever I'm doing at least once before I attempt to do it. Or I have somebody that's done it before helping me. I've timed all sorts of different engines, you know, everything from an inline 4 to a V8. I've never had this problem before. So, I don't know. One of those things, I guess. But yeah, let me know what you think down below in the comments. Why did it explode? Was it something I did? Whatever it may have been. Anyway, hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, give me a thumbs up. If you're here for the first time, hit that subscribe button. We'll see you guys in the next one.